Discover the amazing secret to expelling 5 kg in just 1 hour. Transform your health today. Sarah Thompson, buried under mounting responsibilities, felt her world inch closer to collapse. Single mother of 2, nurse by day, her life was a series of exhausting cycles: work, home, collapse. The laughter of her children dripped into her heart like honey, sweet but fleeting, masking the aching fatigue clinging to her every move. Today, she carried more than just the weight of her body. She bore the burden of judgment from a world that measured worth by outward appearance. Inside, a simmering doubt churned. Was she a failure for not embodying the image of health worthy of her profession? As she navigated the hallways of Maplewood Hospital, her colleagues' observant eyes pierced through her skin, igniting a relentless anxiety. Every glance whispered, "You don't belong here." One night, while sorting through her late grandmother's belongings, Sarah's hand stumbled upon a worn leather journal hidden within an old cookbook. A flicker of hope ignited within her when she opened it, revealing a handwritten account of an ancient family health ritual. The promise leaped off the pages: release weight, revive the spirit. Skepticism gripped her, yet a desperate longing for change bubbled underneath. Could something that seemed so old-fashioned really turn her life around? But then her colleagues' laughter echoed in her mind, harsh and cutting. Dr. Jane Thompson, a renowned figure in Maplewood, believed firmly in empirical evidence, and the thought of sharing her discovery felt akin to walking the line of madness. She hesitated. Should she chase this ghost of a hope or cling tightly to the rationality she'd spent years cultivating? The internal conflict twisted her stomach and left her breath shallow. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Staring at the journal, her determination collided with despair. She wanted to be respected, yet yearned to discard the weight dragging her down. Late-night experiments began, first tentatively, then with newfound fervor. Each step, each ritual, rekindled a spark within her. She felt lighter, her spirit igniting with unrecognizable confidence. The thought of showcasing her findings at the approaching Maplewood Health Fair stirred excitement, but also a knot of fear in her gut. Dr. Jane, always poised and ready to defend the sanctity of medical standards, had caught wind of Sarah's plans. The challenge loomed over her like the dark clouds promising a storm. The prospect of confrontation set Sarah's heart racing. Every count of her insecurities echoed back at her. What if Jane discredited her? What if the entire community mocked her? She was caught in a relentless cycle of second-guessing and clamoring validation, spiraling into a frenzy that threatened to consume her newfound strength. As whispers in Maplewood began to swirl tighter around her, Sarah stood at the threshold of a life-altering choice. Would she summon the courage to stand up in a world intent on crushing her spirit? Or would she shrink back into the shadows of her insecurities? This was her moment, the collision of belief and desperation, a choice teetering on the edge of transformation. The stakes had never been higher. The truth was waiting to be unveiled, but deep down the question nagged. Would she fold under the pressure or rise with the strength of her grandmother's legacy? With the sun dipping below the horizon, casting elongated shadows that seemed to echo her internal strife, Sarah's heart thudded in her chest, a steady drum of anxiety. She paced her small living room, the fabric of her worn couch whispering the comforts she yearned for in contrast to the tension gnawing at her resolve. Each step felt heavier, anchored by the fear of failure and the allure of possibility. Standing before the mirror, Sarah scrutinized her reflection. Was she truly ready to take this leap? The woman staring back had changed. the exhaustion in her eyes wrestling with a newfound glow, almost as if the secrets written in her grandmother's journal were beginning to take root within her. But doubts surged forward, crashing against her confidence like waves against the shore. Could she really share this with her peers? Was it too reckless to challenge conventions? An urgent thought enabled her to push past the hesitations. She was not just a nurse. She was a caretaker, someone who had dedicated her life to supporting others through their struggles. If she could harness the ancient knowledge and weave it into her current world, could it not also help those around her? The gears in her mind began to churn. What if she reframed her share of this discovery? Rather than clinging solely to fear, she could frame it as an exploration grounded in her professional understanding. With reckless enthusiasm, Sarah dove into her preparations. The journal became her constant companion, its pages now filled with her own notes, modifications, and reflections. She meticulously planned each day, integrating the rituals into her routine. Gradually, a profound transformation unfolded, not just physically, but mentally. The laughter of her children felt more buoyant, like sunbeams cutting through clouds, invigorating her spirit. Yet with every ounce of strength she gathered, the shadow of Dr. Jane loomed larger. The looming confrontation was a gripping storm she could neither ignore nor wholly prepare for. That Saturday evening, as the clock hands crept toward midnight, Sarah felt like Atlas, each moment balled into an emotional weight she could hardly bear. As Monday approached, her excitement met palpable fear. The evening before the health fair, doubts began to weave back in, threatening to unravel the fibers of her resolve. At that moment, she recalled her grandmother's belief in resilience, a legacy that reverberated through her actions. Resolutely, she half-whispered to herself, "I owe it to me." The morning sunlight streamed in through the kitchen window, a symbolic fresh start urging her forward. Sarah gathered all her materials, notes, results of her experimentations, the journal that had ignited this journey, and arranged them in a neat folder. Confrontation with Dr. Jane was imminent as she reached the hospital, where the buzz of preparation was palpable. Confidence fluctuated within her, but she maintained a steadfast grip on the thought that perhaps, despite her fears, she had a new identity crafting itself within her, the innovator prepared to step into the light. In the crowded auditorium, anticipation hung thick like a comforting blanket. Not only would she present her findings, but she was also presenting herself, fragile yet determined to prove that the heart of the ancient practices held substantive merit. But as she glanced at Dr. Jane, who appeared unflinchingly poised, every insecurity that Sarah had fought to overcome bombarded her thoughts, icy fingers wrapping around her resolve. The moment crystallized. Before the audience, standing on the brink of a defining breakthrough, would she release herself into the confrontation or withdraw, surrendering to the whispers of inadequacy? Her heart raced. This was her pivotal moment, enveloped in the possibilities of triumph or collapse. The stage was set for a reckoning, and Sarah could almost touch the outcome. Would she take that final step? The sounds of the audience faded, but the weight of her choice remained heavy as the truth loomed just out of reach, pushing her towards an uncertain yet transformative path. The spotlight felt both illuminating and blinding as Sarah stood at the front of the room. The audience's murmurs faded into a singular cacophony, a representation of doubt and anticipation clashing within her mind. Dr. Jane's cold gaze sent a ripple of apprehension through her. The woman symbolized the old guard, the very authority Sarah had aspired to challenge. She inhaled deeply, drawing in the warmth of the sunlight that lingered in her thoughts, a stark contrast to the chill of her surroundings. This was not just about presenting findings. This was a testament to her journey, her rebirth as a professional and as a person. The audience's eyes remained fixed on her, their expectation palpable, yet her inner dialogue spiraled. "Just breathe," she reminded herself, focusing on the journal clutched in her hands. Those pages told a story of resilience and connection, bridging a gap between generations. Each word inscribed was a reminder that even the faintest flicker of hope could ignite transformation. With a practiced fluidity, she began to share the principles and practices gleaned from her grandmother's journal, weaving her personal narrative into her professional revelations. There was a certain rhythm to her words, an undercurrent of emotion woven into the statistics and studies that supported her claims. They weren't just dry facts. They were routes to healing she had witnessed positively impacting her patients and ultimately herself. Gradually, the weight of her nervousness began to lift. She could feel the moment shifting. The audience leaned in, their expressions evolving from skepticism to intrigue. They were no longer merely listeners, they became fellow travelers on this journey she had unfolded. However, she could still sense Dr. Jane's critical scrutiny, her posture rigid and authoritative. The attending doctor's role felt insurmountable, an echo of the past that echoed Sarah's own self-doubt. "What if I can't convince them?" resonated in her heart as she continued her presentation. In her mind flashed the image of her children, alive with laughter, their joy illuminating her struggles. "This isn't just for me," she thought fiercely. "It's for them." The shift in her mindset became her anchor, a lifeline tethering her to her purpose. Just then, a hand shot up from the audience, a question, a challenge. A voice pierced the rhythm of her presentation. "Sarah, how can you be sure these traditional methods can stand up to evidence-based practices? Should we trust your experience over established protocols?" The question hung in the air like a thunderclap. Sarah felt her heart lurch. This was the confrontation she had feared. Behind those words lurked the force of Dr. Jane's ideology, a crack in the growing confidence she'd nurtured. The room felt lighter, yet simultaneously heavier. "Isn't that the crux of exploration?" she replied, her tone steadying, emboldened by the knowledge of her own journey. "Our experiences shape our understanding, and it's through experimentation and dialogue, like the one we are having right now, that we can redefine what health means today. I am not asking you to abandon established practices, but rather to add to them." The challenge invigorated her, igniting the fire within to continue pushing back against the tide of tradition. As she watched a flicker of interest spark in some of the audience members, she felt the connection solidifying. These were not just peers. They were potential allies. With each passing moment, Sarah could see the pieces coming together, not just in her message, but within herself. She stood tall, steady on her feet, embodying the duality of vulnerability and valor. Yet as she concluded her presentation, she felt a familiar strain creeping back. The lingering gaze of Dr. Jane, now sharper, more decisive. What would be the outcome of this confrontation? The air crackled with uncertainty. As the applause erupted, her thoughts raced. It wasn't over yet. She braced herself for Dr. Jane's impending response, a potential harbinger of either validation or confrontation. This moment felt pivotal, a swirling nexus of possibility and dread. Would it dismantle her newfound identity, or would it propel her further into a realm she had begun to call her own? Suddenly the room fell silent again as Dr. Jane rose from her seat, her expression inscrutable. The thrum of expectation pulsed through the auditorium. The moment had come. The final confrontation loomed on the horizon. Dr. Jane's presence loomed larger than life as she stepped toward the podium, her footsteps echoing ominously in the silence. For a fleeting moment, Sarah felt frozen, suspended in a delicate balance between fear and anticipation. The years of her hard work, the emotional labor of sharing family traditions, now hung tangentially on the edge of Dr. Jane's judgment. With practiced poise, Dr. Jane adjusted the microphone. "Thank you for your passionate presentation, Sarah," her voice rang out, measured yet filled with unyielding authority. "Your connection to your grandmother's teachings is commendable. However, we must address the essence of your thesis." The eyes of the audience flickered between the two women, breaths collectively bating. Traditional methodologies, Dr. Jane continued, have been shaped through rigorous scientific processes designed to ensure the highest standard of care in our practice. My question centers on the efficacy of anecdotal experiences. Why should we integrate them? The question hung in the air again, this time even more charged, a dire challenge to Sarah's professional ethos. It would have been easy to recoil, to slide back into the shadows of insecurity, but Sarah felt a force gathering deep within her. With an exhale that transformed into conviction, she responded, Dr. Jane, while established protocols are essential, they don't encompass the entirety of the human experience. Evidence-based practices often need the touch of authenticity, the intuition that comes from personal narratives and lived experiences. For a heartbeat, the audience remained still, processing Sarah's rebuttal. She could almost hear their thoughts aligning. Could the old guard truly accommodate a new perspective? Dr. Jane's expression remained inscrutable, but Sarah could detect the tightening of her lips. It wasn't submission, but rather an acknowledgement of challenge. You speak of integration, yet don't you fear that traditionalists could see this as a dilution of our discipline? The doctor's voice was steely, a clear delineation of the divide Sarah had hoped to bridge. Fear can be a barrier just as much as it can be a motivator, Sarah replied, her heart racing in rhythm with the pulse of her audience. By being open to blending our shared knowledge with experiential insights, we can foster a richer, more compassionate practice. Isn't that the heart of what we aim to accomplish in healthcare? This time, she could see a flicker of something, curiosity, in some audience members. Sarah's courage infused her thoughts. She had disrupted the status quo, the very point of her journey. With an inner resolve flaring, she continued, Real change demands courage. It consists of listening, experimenting, and evolving. One body of knowledge doesn't invalidate another. Rather, they amplify each other. There was a beat of silence, the weight of her words settling heavily in the room. This was not merely a professional discourse anymore. It was a profound introspection, a moment of authenticity that resonated with her audience. Sarah could sense the shift. It was palpable, electric. Very well, Sarah, Dr. Jane said, a new sharpness in her tone. Let's suppose we embrace this exploration you advocate for. How do you propose we validate these experiences and ensure they are not merely anecdotal? The challenge was delivered with an edge, but there was intrigue in her posture now, a flicker deeper than mere skepticism. It was an opening, but a precarious one. Sarah's mind raced. This was the spark she needed, yet it demanded a sophisticated scaffolding of respect and strategic insight. We can develop pilot programs that integrate patient experiences into our evaluations. We can track outcomes, compare, and adapt based on findings, she proposed, the words flowing with unexpected clarity. Let us pilot a collaborative initiative. Let's gather data without dismissal. The room remained charged as Dr. Jane continued to scrutinize her. The audience was leaning forward, eager to see how this confrontation would unfold, how courage intersected with tradition. At that moment, something clicked into place for Sarah. She was no longer simply defending her position. She was proposing an evolution in practice, a dialogue that could transcend entrenched thinking. But this opening could also fortify opposition. Would Dr. Jane seize this opportunity, or would she stick to her guns, unwilling to rise to the challenge? As the silence echoed once more, the chamber felt alive with potential and trepidation. Sarah held her breath, awaiting Dr. Jane's definitive response, unsure if validation or rejection awaited. Could she transform the foundations of practice, or was she merely setting herself up for a fall? The tension hung heavily, and in that moment, clarity emerged within her. It wasn't just about conflicting ideals, it was about creating space for new paradigms. Would she find the strength to navigate this intricate dance of advocacy and authority in such a pivotal moment? Sarah's heart pounded as she prepared for the reply that would decide not only her professional fate, but also redefine the very nature of her practice. Would the confrontation give way to transformation, or would it signify the endurance of a divide she sought to bridge? Dr. Jane's sharp gaze pinned Sarah, a silent battle playing out in the tension-laden air. Sarah's resolve quaked at the prospect of dismissal, yet she rallied, drawn onward by an unexpected surge of self-belief. Data and experience can coexist, Sarah reiterated, infused with determination. We can construct a framework that respects both the rigor of traditional methods and the validity of personal accounts. It's about mutual respect. She observed Dr. Jane's shoulders subtly tighten, the slightest sign of reticence breaking through the mantle of authority. But Dr. Jane was not one to concede easily. Your passion is commendable, but what must be understood is that we abide by regulations that protect our integrity. One misstep could undermine what we've built. The stakes are high, she articulated with authority. The weight of those words struck Sarah, forcing her to confront a truth she had long evaded. Was she actually proposing a more vulnerable practice? The thought sent a chill down her spine, yet she also recognized the potential for enormous growth, for both herself and her profession. Yes, the stakes are high, she acknowledged, and that's precisely why we must innovate responsibly. While safeguarding our standards, we should not shy away from transformation. There was a moment of hesitation as the audience processed her argument. This was no longer merely a professional debate, it was a heartfelt appeal for evolution. Sarah leaned into the palpable energy, her ambition merging with a stirring sense of urgency. This was her defining moment. Dr. Jane's eyes narrowed, examining Sarah like a scientist gauging a promising hypothesis. If we were to embark on this journey together, how would you envision this pilot program? And more importantly, how do you plan to win over skeptical colleagues in such a conservative field? Her voice dripped with scrutiny, but carried an undertone of intrigue. The challenges mounted, yet Sarah felt a burgeoning clarity. We can start small, prioritizing specific areas where patient experiences could genuinely enhance outcomes. For instance, initial feedback could shape treatment protocols in pain management or mental health care. This would generate data to support its efficacy, she articulated meticulously, a newfound strategy crystallizing in her mind. But her audience was fierce. Each questioning gaze bore down on her, a reminder that this was far from a mere academic exercise. And how do you propose to measure success? You cannot merely assume that anecdotal evidence is enough, another voice interjected from the crowd, a palpable undertow of doubt. With her composure rapidly shadowing under the weight of insistence, Sarah tried to sift through her thoughts. The skepticism was penetrating, and each question now felt like a test. Could she structure the reliability of personal narratives? We could conduct surveys and focus groups, assessing both qualitative and quantitative results across diverse demographics. This would offer a robust data set to analyze efficacy, she replied, each word more assertive than the last. The confidence she had unearthed almost surprised her. Perhaps this was the spark she needed, not just for external validation, but for her own self-esteem. As she articulated her vision, the fear of rejection diminished just enough to unveil the thrilling sense of possibility. The room hesitated, caught between doubt and hope. But let's not sugarcoat it, Sarah, Dr. Jane interjected, a definitive edge in her tone. You know there will be resistance. Not everyone will be willing to step outside their comfort zones. Are you prepared to handle that pushback? The question hung in the air, a gauntlet thrown. The acceptance of opposition was crucial, but Sarah wasn't simply confronting an audience. She was confronting herself. Was she ready to champion this mix of tradition and innovation? The flicker of resolve ignited again, and her voice steadied as she replied. Every significant change invites scrutiny, Dr. Jane. I welcome it. It's part of growth, and I believe this journey can ultimately reshape our approach for the better. Anticipation enveloped the chamber, and the audience retained their breath, feeling the magnetic pull of Sarah's conviction. This wasn't merely a matter of right or wrong. It was about progress. Could one discussion disrupt the entrenched walls of convention? The journey ahead felt daunting yet exhilarating. As Sarah gripped the podium, the stakes rising at every heartbeat, an unexpected thrill coursed through her, a testament to her evolution. Would she emerge as a catalyst for change in a field steeped in tradition? The seeds of possibility were planted, but the reality of resistance loomed large. And just then, across the room, Sarah caught Dr. Jane's gaze, a silent acknowledgement of the challenge ahead. Something fierce ignited within her, urging Sarah to rise up in this pivotal moment of transformation. But a lingering question echoed through her mind. If she dared to forge ahead, what sacrifices might she face in the name of progress? The pulsing energy in the room resonated deep within Sarah, a blend of exhilaration and trepidation. The ambitious vision she had set forth now demanded flesh and bones, a tangible structure to support her compelling arguments. This was not just about convincing others, it was a clarion call to understand her own abilities and limitations. She took a breath, feeling the weight of every eye fixed on her, the expectations thrumming through the air like an electric charge. This was her moment to embrace the mantle of leadership, but what did that truly mean? Creating a pilot program was daunting, and the possibility of backlash haunted her thoughts. There is more to explore here, she acknowledged to the audience quietly, seeking to quell her racing thoughts. Each person present represented a connection, not just in their professional roles, but as fellow seekers of understanding. Innovation will require scrutiny, and we cannot afford to overlook the importance of building trust step by step. As she spoke, Sarah began to envision the framework she sought. Her mind reeled with possibilities, casting her experience with patients and their narratives into the center of her planning. What if, she considered, they engaged patients earlier in the data collection process? It would require collaboration, breaking down silos extending within their practice. This notion stirred fresh determination within her. I suggest forming a task force composed of practitioners and patient advocates who can guide us, she proposed, her voice steadying. This will enhance our proposed framework, allowing for a symbiotic approach where contributors feel valued and heard. The clamor of murmured reactions filled the room, laced with approval and skepticism. Could this team-based effort balance the scales of traditional skepticism with the fresh insight gleaned from personal experiences? In her heart, Sarah believed it could be transformational. But as the echoes of their doubt began to crash against her resolve, doubt threatened to creep in. A mental image of Dr. Jane's impassive expression resurfaced. If she was to face such strong opposition, she'd need to fortify her own perspective. To those who may resist, I would pose a question. What if we're missing an opportunity to enhance patient care? What would it cost us to avoid this potential growth? The audience shifted, tension lingering in the air like a cloud. Sarah sensed that she had opened an avenue, albeit it narrow, to connect the raw fear of change with the inherent possibility of progress. But faced with the daunting awareness of her own vulnerability, she halted, her hands resting atop the podium, grounding herself with certainty. Perhaps it's time for all of us to confront our biases. We might be clinging to methods that no longer serve the best interests of our patients, she continued, her stance becoming more resolute. This challenge isn't merely a risk, but an opportunity to redefine our understanding of effective treatment. Each word flowed stronger than the last, and her spirit ignited anew. Thoughts of sacrifice lingered at the edges of her mind, but she had already made some difficult choices to pursue this path. Would she place herself in the firing line of dissent for the sake of innovation? Yes, she would. The convictions were clearer now. Change was never comfortable, but stasis bore its own set of consequences. To rise, she had to face not only the criticism of her peers, but also the potential for self-doubt. Was she truly prepared for the onslaught of resistance that loomed ahead? A fleeting glance at Dr. Jane revealed subtle hints of a challenge begrudgingly accepted. This realization surged deep within her, shaking off the remnants of hesitation like a thick fog lifting. In that moment, the stakes materialized before her. If she pushed forward, not just as an individual, but as a leader, what heights could she help her colleagues reach? But real leadership would not solely hinge on convincing others. it would also demand introspection. How could she evolve in the face of adversity? As her thoughts coalesced, an electric thrill surged through her body. The resolve had ignited a passion for change, yet the path ahead flickered with uncertainty. With an evolving framework resting precariously on the edge of skepticism, she was determined to face whatever trials lay ahead. Self-worth and external validation intertwined within her ambitions. What would be the first misstep in navigating this critical balancing act between tradition and innovation? Each decision now felt like a fork in the road, and without realizing it, Sarah sensed a new test awaited. Would she bend or break under the pressure? The scales of progress had just begun to tip, and with each heartbeat, the adventure deepened. Sarah stepped back from the podium, her heart still racing. The room buzzed with conversation sparked by her presentation. Glimmers of hope danced between the supportive nods and skeptical frowns. She hadn't expected the initial pushback to feel so visceral, and yet she could not ignore the sense of purpose that surged within her as she initiated change. Each face before her reflected layers of doubt and curiosity, and for a fleeting moment she wondered if her words had penetrated deeper than she realized. "Sarah," a voice interrupted her thoughts, pulling her from her reverie. It was Dr. Liu, a senior practitioner known for his unwavering adherence to traditional methodologies. "We need concrete evidence to support this kind of shift. How can we trust this new approach?" His challenge cut through the air, sharp yet constructive. Sarah felt the familiar tightening in her chest. Convincing skeptics like Dr. Liu would be a significant hurdle, but it also provided a pivotal opportunity to crystallize her resolve. The urgency to articulate her vision was palpable. "I appreciate your concern, Dr. Liu," she replied, leaning forward slightly. "But the truth is, innovation often involves stepping into the unknown. If we are waiting for irrefutable evidence, we might miss a transformative path that could enhance our practice." The tension in the room thickened, and she caught glimpses of uncertainty swept across colleagues' faces. Sarah anchored herself again in the core reasons why she believed in this endeavor. "Let's look at the evidence we do have. Patient satisfaction scores indicate a desire for more inclusive care. By involving patients in our processes, we can uncover insights that traditional measures might miss." Dr. Liu regarded her, skepticism fading into contemplation. Perhaps an initial pilot with a smaller group could yield some data. A wave of gratitude washed over Sarah. This wasn't just about winning an argument. She was stirred by the prospect of collaboration, even amid resistance. "Yes, starting small allows us to maintain control and learn as we go," she proposed, warmth igniting her conviction once more. As discussions unfolded, she moved through careful interactions, engaging lingering doubts with empathy while maintaining her vision. Each conversation bolstered her growing confidence, revealing that challenges could ignite creative problem-solving and deeper connections. But amid the momentum, uncertainty lingered like a shadow. What if the pilot flopped? What if her voice faltered under the stress? The insistent echo of Dr. Jane's earlier dismissal haunted her still. It wasn't merely dissent she faced. It was the question of her legitimacy. Could she stand on this precipice of transformation and not only survive, but thrive? Still, as excitement circulated in the room and participants shared ideas, Sarah felt a quiet strength developing within her, a realization that her journey extended beyond mere validation. Each obstacle was a chance to excavate her own strengths, exposing the layers of resolve beneath her doubts. "There's strength in vulnerability," she reminded herself, recalling the collective narratives she aimed to elevate. What if every misstep led to growth? What if being open to struggle is the path to success? The thought clung to her as the meeting drew toward a close. Practitioners began to align their support, creating a semblance of solidarity, something she hadn't fully anticipated. It wasn't just about convincing others. It was about embodying her vision with every interaction. Yet, as Sarah prepared to craft an agenda for their first task force meeting, a creeping concern nestled in the back of her mind. With momentum building, could she maintain the gentle grip on her own emotional landscape? She moved through her day with newfound determination, but her reflection lingered. How would she handle dissent from the very colleagues who were now swaying toward her ideas? The next encounter held the promise of clarity, but also uncertainty. Would she be able to unite their interests or fracture her newfound support? As she glanced at her notes on the emerging pilot project, a realization crystallized. Each interaction heightened her capacity to lead. The landscape shifted beneath her feet, forming a new amalgamation of fear and excitement. Where would this evolving narrative lead her? The next stage beckoned, and with it, a challenge not only to her professional acumen, but also to her understanding of personal resilience. Could she navigate the intricate web of cooperation and dissent? The time had come to face her greatest challenge yet. The next morning, Sarah awoke with a mix of anticipation and dread swirling in her stomach. Today was the day the first task force meeting would unfold, and the pressures of leadership pressed heavily on her shoulders. She understood that her ability to inspire trust, even amidst lingering skepticism, was paramount. Yet, the shadows of doubt whispered incessantly. Did she really have what it took to lead this initiative? As she prepared to leave for the office, Sarah stood in front of the mirror, scrutinizing her reflection. This wasn't just about presenting her ideas anymore. It was about her emerging identity as a leader. Could she stretch beyond her comfort zone? Each brushstroke of her makeup felt like a layering of armor against the uncertainties she would face. Arriving at the meeting room, she felt a wave of anxiety crash over her, but it soon dissipated as she took in the sight of her colleagues filling the chairs. There was a palpable energy, a mix of hope and apprehension mingling in the air. She sensed that they too were teetering on the edge of transformation. Could she tap into that energy, or would it overwhelm her? "Thank you all for coming," Sarah began, her voice wavering slightly before she steadied it. "Today, we embark on a journey together." She paused, allowing her words to settle. "I believe this pilot will redefine how we engage with our patients, but I need your insights and commitment to make this work." Dr. Liu was the first to speak, his arms crossed and expression cautiously analytical. "What measures do you propose we put in place to ensure this pilot provides the data we need? We can't afford to waste time or resources." His challenging demeanor ignited a flicker of defensiveness within her, but instead of recoiling, she chose to meet his gaze steadily, summoning the confidence she had cultivated in recent days. "I appreciate your concern, Dr. Liu. I propose we start with a clear framework for data collection, accompanied by feedback channels that allow us to adapt in real time." She watched as a few heads nodded, but the tension in the room intensified as questions continued to arise. Would her plans withstand this scrutiny? Taking a deep breath, she realized the necessity of vulnerability in leadership. "I acknowledge that this process will require us to let go of some old habits. It may feel uncomfortable, but discomfort can lead to growth." As the discussion evolved, Sarah felt a fusion of exhilaration and trepidation. Each challenge voiced reminded her of her own sneaking doubts. Then a sobering thought struck her. Was she truly ready to bear the weight of their hopes and fears? Dissent began to emerge not just from Dr. Liu, but from others as well. "What if we go too far and lose sight of the tried and true methods?" one colleague insisted, highlighting a profound fear of change. Sarah felt the air grow thick as her throat tightened. This was it, the moment that could fracture the budding support she had. Yet it also presented an opportunity to shift perspectives. What if we could combine both traditional methods and new approaches? We could create a hybrid that honors our past while paving the way for our future. She noticed Dr. Liu sizing her up, his expression wavering between skepticism and intrigue. For the first time, she sensed that he might just be willing to entertain her perspective. But could she anticipate his next challenge? The stakes rose as each question posed revealed deeper vulnerabilities in her stance. As the meeting progressed, Sarah's mind raced with strategies to mitigate conflict while encouraging participation. Yet each thread of disagreement started to feel heavier, demanding more than just her passion. It required deft negotiation. With every response, the question loomed larger. Would she end up uniting her colleagues or creating deeper divides? By the end of the meeting, the atmosphere shifted. Some remained hesitant, yet Sarah had sparked curiosity, and a few voices called for more exploration of her ideas. The dichotomy of enthusiasm and conflict echoed within her. She left feeling both invigorated and weary, but more aware of how fragile her newfound leadership role was. Later, as she reflected on the session, she recognized something vital. The journey towards change was inherently messy, and perhaps that was where her real strength lay. The ability to maneuver through unpredictability while staying true to her vision. Yet the journey seemed daunting, and the fragility of her progress threw her into deep contemplation. As she glanced at her chaotic notes, a thought struck her. What lay on the other side of this trial? The real test was not merely in the outcome of the pilot, but in her capacity to navigate the seas of dissent and collaboration. Could she evolve not just as a leader, but as someone who inspired confidence in others when uncertainty was rife? The answer loomed closer, and with it came the understanding that she must prepare for her next confrontation, one that would probe the essence of her vision and the resilience of her leadership. The time had come to take her most daunting step yet. The following morning, as sunlight streamed through her window, Sarah felt both the thrill and weight of what lay ahead. The meeting had reverberated through her thoughts all night, each question echoing back, demanding answers she still struggled to articulate. Today, she was set to meet with Dr. Liu one-on-one, a session that could either solidify their professional relationship or deepen the chasm between them. Once at the office, Sarah resolved to approach the meeting with a clarity she had been lacking. She reviewed her notes, prioritizing key points that showcased both her vision and the insights she had gleaned from the previous discussion. Her fingers traced the pages lightly, as if searching for the right words to forge a connection rather than deepen division. As she stepped into Dr. Liu's office, the atmosphere was markedly different from the bustling meeting room. The walls held an air of quiet intensity, presenting an opportunity for an honest dialogue. Dr. Liu offered a nod of acknowledgement as she sat across from him, a glance that hinted at mutual recognition of stakes involved. "Sarah," he began, his voice steady, yet guarded. "We have to talk about the direction of this pilot. I understand you're passionate, but I need you to see the risks involved in shifting away from established methods." Immediately, she noted his protective posture, his arms crossed, the slight furrow in his brow. The urge to retreat into defensiveness surged within her, but she resisted, prompting a composure she hadn't known she could muster. "Dr. Liu, your concerns are valid," she replied, leaning slightly forward. "Change can feel threatening, but it's also an opportunity. I believe that by blending traditional approaches with innovative strategies, we can enhance our effectiveness without losing our core principles." His expression softened, but his skepticism lingered. What if, in that blend, we create confusion? Patients and staff thrive on familiarity. It's a delicate balance. Sarah paused, contemplating his words deeply. She understood his worries stemmed from a genuine desire to protect both the patients and the team. However, within her, a ripple of determination surged. "I recognize that, and that's why I propose we take small steps, pilot tests within the framework we're already using. Let's gather real-time feedback to see what's working while we transition." Dr. Liu leaned back, his expressions shifting. Was it possible she was onto something? In his silence, she saw a flicker of curiosity that ignited her confidence further. "We can frame it as an experiment. If we're transparent with everyone about our intentions, it could ease the process." "Transparency is essential," he conceded, his brow relaxing. "But it also means accepting that not every idea will work, and we'll need to pivot quickly. Her heart raced. Absolutely. Failure is part of the journey. What matters most is that we learn from it and adjust course together. As they spoke, Sarah felt a shift within herself. Every assertion she made created a ripple of understanding, knitting a thread between their perspectives. It was a dance of negotiation, where every word had the potential to either bond or divide. Perhaps, she mused, her strength resided not just in leadership, but in active listening and collaboration. The meeting concluded with a tentative agreement to trial their combined approaches, something that felt monumental to her. Dr. Liu's acknowledgement of her vision provided a grounding force, a recognition that sometimes leadership involved relinquishing the illusion of control to instill trust. Walking out of his office, Sarah felt both empowered and unsettled. This step was a testament to her growth, yet the path ahead was still clouded with uncertainty. What would the reactions be from the wider team when they learned of this proposed change? Would Dr. Liu's support hold when faced with community skepticism? The vibrant energy of the office contrasted starkly with the trepidation gnawing at her from within. She had taken a significant stride today, yet the real work still lay before her. In that moment, Sarah knew she had to prepare more thoroughly, not just for strategic planning, but for the emotional landscape of her colleagues. As thoughts spilled forth like a torrent in her mind, she realized that every meeting from this point forward would be not just about the ideas, but about managing feelings too. What secrets would the team unearth together when faced with this transition? And how could she navigate the delicate balance between enthusiasm and apprehension? It was time to confront the collective mindset, a challenge far greater than she had anticipated, and one that required her to dig even deeper into her leadership capabilities. As the day of the pilot project approached, Sarah found herself at a crossroads of exhilaration and apprehension. The voices that echoed in her mind were no longer filled with doubt. They transformed into a chorus of hope, an affirmation that she had initiated change within herself and her workplace. In the days leading up to the launch, Sarah invested countless hours crafting comprehensive materials. She meticulously prepared informational packets that explained the pilot's objectives and methodologies, ensuring that her colleagues understood how their input would shape this endeavor. It was more than just data collection. It was about harnessing shared experiences to create a holistic care approach. As she entered the conference room that morning, the energy was palpable. The team was positioned at the intersection of tradition and innovation. She took a breath, feeling the weight of anticipation linger in the air, transforming into empowered focus. Today marked an essential milestone, not just for the pilot, but for her own evolution from a hesitant nurse into a proactive leader. "Thank you all for joining me," Sarah began, her voice steady, ringing out. "Today, we step into a new territory that respects both our shared foundations and explores new methodologies. Our goal is to enhance patient care by incorporating their insights into our practice." She observed the team's expressions ripple between skepticism and intrigue, but it was a marked improvement from their earlier resistance. Dr. Liu, sitting in the front row, nodded subtly, indicating his support. That mutual acknowledgement illuminated a path forward. She was no longer alone in this endeavor. As she walked them through the pilot's design, a blend of familiar practices with the integration of patient experience surveys, she could see the initial hesitations beginning to thaw. "This isn't about dismantling our established practices," she emphasized, "but rather building on them. We aim to create a model for patient engagement that all of us can learn from and adapt to over time." Intriguingly, during the presentation, voices emerged from the crowd willing to explore the unknown. Questions turned from skepticism to constructive dialogue, gradually transforming the atmosphere into one of collaboration. "Sarah," a junior nurse interjected, her brows furrowing with thought, "do you have an idea of how to track patient outcomes effectively? Will we be able to capture this data without extra burdening our already overwhelmed staff?" "Great question," Sarah replied, invigorated by the discourse. "I suggest employing a streamlined, user-friendly format for feedback, something quick that integrates seamlessly into our routine. This project is as much about easing our workload as it is about improving patient satisfaction. As Sarah continued, she leveraged the opportunity to highlight the potential positive impact on both their professional environment and patient satisfaction. The enthusiasm in the room began to swell. People were no longer just responding to her ideas. They were contributing their own, seeking ways to ensure the initiative would flourish. In that moment, Sarah felt an exhilarating shift within herself. Every challenge posed sharpened her resolve, solidifying her position as both a leader and a collaborator. Each response encouraged her to embrace the discomfort of this new role. She had genuinely started to transform not only her practice, but also the culture surrounding her. Finally, as the meeting came to an end, she concluded, "Our journey is just beginning. I want us to celebrate each step we take toward successfully integrating our old and new approaches. The feedback we receive will become the foundation for evolving our practices in a way that benefits us all and, most importantly, our patients." The applause that followed echoed in her heart, each clap a testament to the connection forged that day. There were still uncertainties ahead, challenges that lay on the horizon, yet within her bloomed a deep confidence. She looked around the room at her colleagues, seeing not just followers, but partners in this journey. Recognizing their shared commitment, began weaving a tapestry of trust. Each thread represented open dialogue, collaboration, and the willingness to innovate together. In the days that followed, the pilot launched with remarkable enthusiasm. The team implemented their strategies with a sense of ownership and pride. Outcomes began pouring in, positive changes reflecting the adjustment in approach. Sarah felt a wave of elation. The anxiety that once dominated her began to fade into the background. But the true consolidation of her growth emerged when she received feedback that highlighted improvement in patient satisfaction and overall experience. For the first time, Sarah didn't just witness the success of a project, she recognized her own evolution. The journey from self-doubt into self-confidence solidified her place not only as a nurse, but as a leader shaping a community of care. This was not merely about altering practices or metrics. It marked her transformation into an advocate for voices often overlooked. In the quiet moments of reflection, Sarah understood a profound truth. Authentic leadership encompasses vulnerability, resilience, and a willingness to step into the unknown with grace. She had conquered self-doubt. Now, she recognized the power of shared experiences to inspire those around her. As she stood in front of a group of her colleagues presenting the results, she felt the weight of the journey behind her. But it was a weight now full of purpose and assurance. She had proven that shifts could happen, connection could thrive, and together they could reshape the landscape of care. This collective achievement brought satisfaction beyond measure, recognition, and fulfillment. As she addressed her team, solid confidence underscored her tone, culminating in her final words, "We did this together, and this is just the beginning." Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It makes a profound difference. Comment your reactions and theories about Sarah's journey and the transformative power of collaboration. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share.